This is the Groove Guru podcast. My name is Windsor, and my guest today is drummer, writer, and video artist Simon Hanson. Simon has had a diverse career, which continues to develop. And Simon, you're currently drummer in English rock band Squeeze, and along the way, your touring performance and recording credits include work also with Death in Vegas, Grace Jones, Iggy Pop, Ozzy Osbourne, Rick Wakeman, Liam Gallagher, Ace of Base. Lots more. The Quireboys,
wow.
Hybrid. Wow. All of that. You know, it's amazing. You've also created albums of original music, many interesting music video projects, and have been featured in Rhythm and Modern Drummer magazine. Simon, thank you for being here today, and welcome to the Groove Guru podcast.
I'm so delighted you invited me and honoured.
Pleasure. And it's great to see you here. It's great to catch up. It's been a few years, and great to see you active with Squeeze again, and some past context. You know how we met. You know, when I started playing drums, I was still in Scotland. It was through Rhythm magazine, I believe. You had a column that I would see you in some of your output that way. And then a few years after that, I moved to England and became a pro myself. And then it was a few years ago at a Zildjian Day event in London, the Hard Rock Cafe, that I first got a chance to say, hey, there's you in person. Yeah. How's it going?
And we've been friends ever since, although we don't see each other enough, which is, we've got to rectify that.
Indeed. And, you know, definitely grateful for, you know, platforms such as this and social media for that connectivity factor, for real.
As I said on the phone to you, I do watch you, not in a stalking type of way, or maybe it is a stalking type of way. Well, I sit outside your house, obviously.
Well, of course, you know. So joining the queue and all that. But
yeah.
All good. So awesome. So Simon, how did you get started as a drummer then, and what were your inspirations?
Well, yeah, I've got a brilliant story. I am colourblind, and I wanted to be a jet pilot, and I could see no other future for myself. And I started to learn to fly, and I went for a medical so I could go solo. And they said, no, mate, you are never going to be a pilot. I wanted to join the RAF. I thought they'd train me and I would fly jets, and then I would go on to do commercial. That I saw my life. And I walked out of the medical. I went, all right, then, rock star. And I remember saying that to myself as a joke. I mean, it took me quite a few years for reality to catch up with me. But I mean, I don't believe I am a rock star, but I do pretend to live that life. Cool. Don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun doing what we get a chance to do, making music and bring smiles to people's faces, etc. You know?
I just think I feel myself so lucky. I pinch myself, going, I'm still doing this. Can't believe it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's how it was. So then I obviously didn't go and become a rock star. Then I went, so I was leaving school in, I'll give away my old age when it's there, it's out there, early 80s. And there were no jobs, but I could play in a club. And I could get 10 or 15 quid a night when all my mates who had jobs were getting £25 a week. And you could do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday lunchtime in clubs, and you get a tenner every time, and that equated to me living, being a drummer.
Awesome.
And it was kind of the first, you know, because I've been doing it since I was 14, you know, playing in covers bands, and I just continued that. I mean, I had some jobs in between. Obviously, I was a toilet cleaner, a really good one. Worked in Sketchless for a while, ruined someone's wedding dress and they fired me. You know, I mean, I had to do drums. I think it became really serious late 20s when I was in London being a professional drummer, and I just said, you know, I became very dissatisfied. I pushed myself into situations where I could get jobs. And then I found out I actually wasn't probably as good as I thought I was in my head. So I sort of, when I was about 25, I sat down and said, right, I've got to learn how to play. So, you know, I had all the hubris of a kid, and I naturally could just play the drums, you know, probably not dissimilar to you. It was something I didn't really ever have lessons.
Right.
I had a really, really good like coach, a guy called Nick Hallam. I just spent 2 days with him actually, and it was great to go back and visit. And what he was a local dude in my town, and I used as he said yesterday, I used to go and set his kit up, but then I'd never get off it.
Right.
And he said he was so annoying, and he said, and then one day he couldn't do a gig, so I filled in, and it was sort of like that. But I remember one of the best thing because I think he brought a bunch of albums around to my house. I'm 14 at home, and he said, "Right, learn to play like this, and I'll see you in 20 years." Was his kind of his thing, and what a great thing to do. One of the records we were talking about yesterday was Seconds Out, which is a Genesis live album, and it features obviously Phil Collins playing a little bit, but it's a drummer called Chester Thompson.
Yes.
And I think he was one of my, what a groovy. Can we swear on this?
Yeah. Keep
What a groovy motherfucker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's classic. I know that album pretty well because there was a few years I was playing in a Genesis tribute.
I know you were, yeah.
And and that record, just magical sounding. There's something about that 70s Genesis era, late 70s, early 80s. It's just got, when you listen back to those live recordings and bootlegs and stuff, it's like, wow, such a vibe on it. And yeah, a great one.
Well, I mean, I think Phil Collins during the 70s and early 80s was the most amazing drummer. He had this swing, which was hard to define. And anybody else that plays his music, it's really hard. And having like Weather Report's drummer come in and emulate that, how good was Chester Thompson to be able to do somebody else's playing and do it so well? And
really faithful to a lot of those recordings, and again, a distinctly different feel that you had.
Yes,
a bit
it didn't
more
matter though, did it?
Straight. No, it worked. Yeah, absolutely,
very much.
So,
I got to mention Phil Collins within 2 minutes of any podcast.
Perfect.
I'm out of the closet. We couldn't admit to liking Phil Collins for years, and I'm out of the closet. And now I tell people that I'm a Phil Collins fan. Not as a singer, but as a drummer.
Absolutely. I second that for sure. It wasn't until I was asked to do that. There was that Genesis project that I really, really checked out what Phil was doing. And it was like, wow, what an amazing musician. Just
big boots to Phil. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He was so good, especially. Well, what's his name? Brian Eno used him on a load of stuff, and that was a really good bridge for me. I think he heard him playing on the Lamb or saw him playing on the Lamb Lies Down, and the fact that Brian Eno went, there's something about that guy's drumming, because he wasn't a star at the time in any way, and it's sort of an indication of where he was sort of at. It brought something.
What was that record again? I'm just going to look it up. I think it was Brian. Was it his third album? If you know the name of it, yeah, the one with Phil.
I don't.
It's worth giving a shout out to. It's just really another Green World. I think it might have been.
No, well, that's the music to Arena. The BBC TV series. Another Green is the album. That's just one song. I know. Is that might be. There's a whole album called Another Green World.
Yes, I think.
Wow,
Phil's on that. Yeah, it's a really, really good one. It's let me just double check. It's Phil's drumming on that. It was like 1975 one. I'll put it in the so we can check it out. It's really cool.
I'm going back because the song Another Green World is famous because it's Arena was a 70s or 80s TV show about the arts where they had a bottle with a neon light in it, and that's the music to that, which is. There's no drumming on it, but it's an incredible piece of Eno music. He's a genius.
Absolutely. Yes.
I did met him in a studio when he was, I don't think they ever came out, but he's working with the Pet Shop Boys. And I was next door with someone, and he came out, and I was like, tried not to be a knob. But it's like, it's fucking Brian Eno.
Yeah.
Oh my God. God, it's like time stopped and the background went out of focus. And I probably said something stupid.
Well, such amazing music though. Just all that ambient music for airports, etc. Beautiful. So awesome. So what else were you listening to in your formative years? What were some of the other records that you had to learn and play like that in 20 years?
Well, one of them was Into the Outdoor. Not the greatest Zeppelin album, but I liked it. And if you want to listen to some unbelievable drumming, you should play. I mean, obviously all the classic Zeppelin albums are there. I think Into the Outdoor is that very last album before John Bonham died, and it was done at ABBA's studio, and the production's really clear, and it's John Bonham was drumming "Fall in the Rain."
Yes,
taking every time somebody says it's the Picaro shuffle, it's like no, I mean, because even what's his name didn't everybody who's ever been famous for that shuffle, it goes back. It
absolutely
was being done before. Is it Cozy Cole or something like that? It goes way back. It's not even Bernard's, is it? He's taken it from somebody else.
And I mean, there's that history there because even like Jeff Porcaro on his instructional like video DVD Starlex back in the day, he credits that he didn't come up with it. It was Bernard and Bonham that he copied with it, and
copied something.
And have you heard the isolated drum track for that?
Well, Bonham's.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Get on with it.
Yeah.
I urge every drummer to listen to that, because if you ever got nerves in the studio, have a listen to what John Bonham didn't have any fucking nerves. He was telling everyone, mate, it's just so. I'm not scared. I'm not scared anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And it's like just from when he talks on that. I'll put a link to that in the notes for this.
Please,
but it's so good. It's like it's this guy that it's like can't string two words together when he's counting the song off. But then as soon as he starts playing drums, it's like
it just flows. Oh, we've got a guest.
Hello.
That's Scout. He'll be up here in a minute. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I suppose I found that really funny listening to that. I'd got it wrong. So hearing the isolated track for that was good. It's so clever, and it's not even anyone else's version of it. It's definitely his version of it, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Just the kind of intricacies of it. It's like first checking out that Rosanna version with the ghost notes in between the triplets, that on the snare, and then it's completely a bit different with John. It's like, oh wait a minute, got to figure this out.
Yeah.
But yeah, great feel. So, what have been some of those key milestones in your career today? And along with that, what are the kind of key things that you really, realize those lessons? Because being self-taught without a teacher, then it's kind of on you to have those insights.
Yeah.
What were some of the key ones?
Yeah. I think, well, for me, the greatest lessons have always been when I've got a gig and couldn't do it, or I've been put in with some amazing musicians where you are given, and it's still happening to this day, you realize you're in the presence of people whose musicianship is so high that you've got to match it. So my first on that would have been, I was lucky enough to join a band called The Aloof, who were not at all well known, but they were sort of DJs who were remixing people like U2 and Michael Jackson. So, I was getting to sort of play on that sort of level of track. And what they expected in the early 90s of accuracy was kind of off the scale to what I thought accuracy was.
Right. And
I think,
in what way?
There's a brilliant, The Aloof had this producer called Jags Cooner, who to this day is just amazing. But you'd have a click, and your snares and your kicks had to be on it. And there was no movement allowed. There was just you couldn't say, well, no, that's feel. They were either going to cut things up, or you're working with 808 kicks. And I think when I first went in to play with them, I was going in bombastic. I can swing, and then when they played it back, they go, well, it's nowhere near the click, mate. And I'm going, oh no, it isn't, is it? So I think there was a bit of, okay, let's go and sort that out. That's one thing I've got to sort out, which I am still sorting out to this day. I'm much happier with it now. So that was a definite milestone, and I think that affected all drums. I think we became this interface to drum machines in the early 90s, and some of us went with it and some of us didn't. And I was definitely, that lit up being involved in electronic drums for me, the possibilities of that. And I had an amazing association with the wonderful Yamaha, who gave me a free drum kit and access to electronic drum kits when, I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure I've never sold a kit for them in my time with them. But they were just kind of, they sort of had the money at the time to say, well, you've been on TV a couple of times. Here's a nice kit. We'll back you for a while to see if anything happens. And they gave me electronic kit, and I did a tiny bit of work on the development with a guy called Trevor Thornton, and went over to Japan to do stuff and did some sampling for them. So some of the drum sounds are actually some of my individual hits. Did it at Real World.
Cool.
For a week. Had dinner with Peter Gabriel. This is how long ago it is. He had a baby strapped to him because he was working on something, but didn't want to leave the baby.
Wow.
So it's got to be 20 years ago now, 30 years.
Very cool. Awesome. And that with electronic drums, that's a big part of what you've been doing, which I've been seeing.
Yes.
You know, and
I love them. I love the idea that drums, I mean, I love acoustic drums, and playing at a gig, as hitting, moving air is fundamentals of what we do. I love the idea you can do different things. I love the idea of triggering. Have you seen Zach Danziger? I always get his name wrong.
Yes, yeah, amazing player. Yeah. First from the Wayne Krantz stuff at first, with the whole fusion thing, it was like, wow, he can play. And then more recently with electronics and some video projects, it's like, wow, it's pretty special talent, you know?
Yeah, I went to see him, but I had to take a calculator and a pen and paper. I felt like saying, stop, Zach, stop the gig. You can just do that slowly for a sec. But obviously I didn't. I looked like a nutter. But I mean,
there's always one.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm intrigued with video and where music collides with video as well. I think there's a world opens up. I'm a movie fan, and a piece of music can completely change a movie.
Absolutely,
and I love the energy that's like a nuclear explosion when the right song hits the right scene, and I love exploring that very much.
Absolutely, and speaking of that, that's something I've really noticed about you that I didn't know existed as something that you did, which was creating those like music to movies. I think it was the chase tapes videos that you've done.
Yeah,
so I was curious about that. How did that? First of all, how did you get into that video production?
Well, it all started when, unfortunately, Squeeze were at the Brit Awards or something like that, I don't know, one of those awards, and they gave all the bands there a flip camera. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah,
basically a camera with a USB. So we got this lovely gift of a flip camera, and so when we were out on the road, I would film everything and then make a little film and then put it on YouTube. And I've been doing that probably since 2005, and they're all up there somewhere. And it started out not as a marketing tool. This is I think in 2005, we didn't realize that the internet was a tool for marketing. We didn't really know what it was. I basically did it so that I had a diary that would be there forever. Because I don't know where my hard drives are. I mean, we don't even know how long hard drives will last, do we?
Sure.
But I'm figuring anything that's on YouTube it will be there, and that's my use of YouTube is that I don't commercialize myself, I don't promote myself, I just put stuff up so I know it's always there.
Yeah, good to have that record for sure. And like with those chase tape videos that you did, is that what came first with that? Because there's obviously a lot of different movie scenes. Is like fight scenes. There's a Jagger one. There's like a Bruce Lee one, and you're playing drums to music, which I assume you've composed for that.
Yeah.
Sure. So what came first with that? The movie clip or the music?
Yeah, my idea was that I would like to compose something completely off the grid. So now going to the antithesis of my professional drumming career, where you need to be so accurate to be in with the computer because the track's probably already been half produced or whatever. I wanted to go 100% off grid. So what I did is I would then cut down a sequence from a film into 3 minutes. I would put it onto a screen in front of me and I would just play the drums to how I felt. And then I would add music to the drums. So the thing that is it makes me look so absolutely amazing. I remember Yolanda Charles, who had played bass with Squeeze for a bit, saying to me, "How did you write those time signatures? And how are you so in touch?" And I was going, "No, it's not that. I just played what the film was telling me to play. Then I added the other instruments. They're all digital instruments. I'm not sat with a bass. It's an iPad. It's right, like garage band, and then I just tightened everything up, except the drums. The drums is one live take, so that's how it starts. So in many ways, it's a bit of a con because it looks like I've written a piece of music then played along to it. And this is typified because I actually performed at a festival last summer with the films. And when I sat down to do the films, I thought, right, I'm going to play these live. I just couldn't play them. They're so complicated.
Yeah.
Even though I drummed them, it was like, so it's sort of a subconscious thing. I'm going to drum to the picture, then I added the music. When I came back to saying, well, I'm listening to it so many times, I should know it. It just sounded absolutely. So when I did the gig, I made a completely different set of films up and played along to them. I was more like a DJ. I was a DJ with a drum kit. And I'm probably going to do more of that. It was really interesting. And the main interesting thing doing it live was because I've been drumming all these, same as you, doing stadiums or whatever, or little gigs, pubs. I'm always behind a drum kit and somebody else takes the responsibility of being the focus, the front man. I've always got a singer, same as you, and I'm back there doing a completely different job. I'm there to be the drummer, to be triggering probably sounds and stuff and being there to play along the songs. All of a sudden I was in a festival dance tent and it was only me. It was me and the computer. And it was so scary. Because I started playing, I think, what if they just hate me? And then the demons started going. And because it was sort of a strange format, because it was a drum music, I wasn't playing covers or anything. Well, I did use some samples of different things. It took them about half a song before they went, oh, I see what's happening here. And it helps that the drums are so loud and then the picture was there and the music was good. And I did 47 minutes. So after one song, it was fine. They turned around and they went mad. But there was, the first half of the song felt like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because people just stood there going, fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
What's that bloke doing? What's that weird pictures in the background that aren't relevant?
Funny.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
really cool. Really. And so I saw that then the other one, the more recent one that I've seen you post, it was the Gold Room tapes.
Yes. So that's the gig. So that is me.
Right, cool.
That is me preparing for the gig. Yeah. That's I kind of put that up. That was the demo for what the gig would be. And I basically put it online to log that that's it. But I mean, I've used so many samples in that, I can't sell it. I mean, I've got just certain vocals and stuff that is not mine. Yeah, so
it sounds really cool. And with that one, because that sounds more straight ahead in a lot of cases than the chase tapes.
That's really astute of you. Yes, that was what I did to be able to play live. So the chase tapes is off grid. It's as close I'll ever get to jazz. It was just playing anything that I tried to say what the picture told me to play. I didn't really get all spiritual like that, but it was a creative point. I found it amazing. And some of the music, some turned out really good. Whereas I thought, even if I do this in a dance tent, like as the chase tapes, even if I straighten them out a bit and it's that abstract, people just won't get it. And because I was on, it wasn't a big festival. There was probably, I don't know how many people were there, but I was on after a Kings of Leon tribute band who were amazing. And it's like, oh my God, what? So the whole tent had gone mad. They were young kids and they were just so good. And then this old bloke with a drum kit and a projector. And it was like, what the fuck is he doing here? What's Grandad doing with his drums?
But he makes pretty interesting noise. But yeah, there's some really great like creative visuals with that, and I think the quality of that production with the video is like, wow, I was pretty impressed by that. And musically,
thank you. Yeah.
And was that the Gold Room tapes? Was that spontaneous, playing what came to mind as well, or was that more composed?
It was a little bit more composed. So the music did come first with that because because I was on a meter, and it came from, I've been messing around with Ableton, and I mean, music, it's just changed now, hasn't it? So nowadays, when you're writing music, you can just go to the internet and get a section. And you know, is it like Splice where you can get different, you pay the copyright, you pay your subscription, and you just download. I didn't actually use Splice. I used Ableton with a Launchpad.
Yes.
So I don't really see basically a Launchpad is like a chessboard where it's a MIDI controller chessboard where you can link it up to different sounds, and as you press it, you can set it to a key, so you can play piano and you'll never be out of key, or you can set it so that only the right notes light up. I just went and bought one, and it's amazing because I don't know what a G minor seventh is or care, but I know when things sound right. Yeah. And in some ways, the music I make it's not based around. I mean, I'm in bands like Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze, and it's amazing. Chordsmith, genius. You know, I wouldn't dare even get into the same arena as songwriting as somebody like that. But for me, the modern production allows you to be musically sort of inept in musical training knowledge, but you can get a piano and it'll always be in the right key, and you can find some interesting inversions.
Yeah,
and that type of thing. Modern, you know, those type of production things are just amazing. I urge you all to mess around. You don't even have to buy a Launchpad. You can just download it on your iPad. You don't have to have the physical bad boy.
Yeah. Very cool, and great point, because you know, a lot of people listening to this, there could be you know, it's quite a varied audience. There could be, you know, up and coming people who are learning to play the instrument for the first time, or you could have people who are working more as a sideman and want to start, you know, writing and creating their own thing. And
yes,
what are some tips for drummers that want to get started with that process? Say a drummer who wants to write their own music but's never written a song or a piece of music before. What would you pointers be?
I think that sometimes drummers aren't looked at as writers, and I think that's very, very wrong. I think we could potentially make them. And I think if you like music, if you like a piece of music somebody else has done, you can then be enthused to go and do your own. And do you know what? It doesn't matter what it's like, and you don't have to. You know, as I've just said, I work as do you in the shadow of giants in the songwriting field, but it just doesn't matter if you can go out and make a song and it sounds good. You're there, you've made it, then you can put it on YouTube and it might be a hit. But you've just got to go and do it. I think it makes you a much better drummer if you know how to put together a song. I think that your musicianship will go up, you know, exponentially. You will just be a much. Oh, now the dog's got it. Oh, this is going to be brilliant. How did he get
special guest?
It's oh, come on, Scout. Yeah, he's in now. The dog's in. Yeah. So I truly believe it's. I mean, I think my drumming got much better as well when I learned how sort of to produce and record drums. I think the quickest way to become accurate as a drummer is record yourself. And if you know how to record yourself, then you are, look here, we've got a guest.
Hello.
He's in now. If you know how to record yourself, make yourself sound good. This is Scout. You are,
hey.
That's better than a year's practice. Recording yourself areas. I don't know whether you found that, and I still. I mean, it's the biggest advance I had in my own playings when I could record and listen back. to myself and go, okay, you're doing this. I still to this day rush into fills, and I'm aware because I've edited myself that as you're playing along a bar and you're coming into a fill, I'm pushing milliseconds ahead when I shouldn't be. I mean, and I know that's feel, and I know that's part of the excitement of it as well. But it'd be nice, or it is nice, if you could control it and add it when you want.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that you should so train yourself with a metronome that you become an unfeeling drummer, but to have the control, say, okay, now I'm going to sit the snare back, but the bass drum's going to be on, things like that, like Simon Kirk, how he plays. How does he do it? It sits so late, but the bass drum's always in time.
Yeah, great feel. Yeah. And 100%, yeah, that's probably been, and I was reflecting on this yesterday for something I was writing. It was, recording yourself play and just hearing back, like, with a bit of distance from yourself. And it always tells the truth, and it can work both ways. It's like, okay, that's working well, great. And it can be really good to, I've found, for a genuine sense of self-confidence, not ego, but just to know you're doing something right. Okay, that's working well. And then also it tells the truth of what's not working so well. And
it does.
Just learning to embrace that, because it was like what you were saying earlier on. It was that thing about, making mistakes or failure, or just embracing that, like realizing that without making mistakes and reflecting on it, we can't get better because we don't know what we're doing wrong. And just to look at that and just say, okay, what do I want it to be? It's key.
Totally. I could not. Yeah, and it's not nice at the time if someone says, mate, you're not very good. But it's like, okay, there's a chap who died, a guy called Matthew Seligman I worked with. He was David Bowie's drummer at Live Aid. He was Thomas Dolby's drummer. I think he'd been in the Thompson Twins. I remember doing a session with him, and he was an odd character, and he would speak his mind, and he said, mate, you've got to work on your bass drum. You can't play it, And by this time, I'd been in bands who'd had hits, and I'd been on TV, and I was getting pretty much full of myself, doing all right, done some nice gigs, and it really, really hurt me. And then I went and practiced my bass drum until it, I sat in. I used to go and jam with Jeff Dunn, the real Jeff Dunn. And if you want to know how to play a bass drum, Jeff fucking Dunn can play a bass drum. He can play it like he's got a double when he has. Underrated drummer. He's not underrated. Actually, he's pretty well known and rated. Overrated drummer.
Yeah, well, and you recommended like tracks. I'm not that familiar with Jeff's work. I've heard his name and seen him in like rhythm and things like that. But any recommended?
Incognito was Incognito and Van Morrison Live, and also I don't know whether he played on the album, but he played a lot with Terence Trent D'Arby. And I wonder he's knocking around with 10cc now. I think, what an amazing drummer. I mean, this is a good one. So I got a job with the band, but they promised Jeff that he would do the album, and I was hurt that they didn't want me to do it. So I went, fuck it. So I went and sat with him while he was doing it, and we became friends. I swallowed my pride, probably reluctantly, and I went in and I sat with him while he recorded the album, and I took as much as I could, became friends. He so sweetly would come and jam with me. I'd book a room and say, look, I don't want to drum this. He didn't want to teach me, but he said, I will play with you for an hour. And he's a lovely, fucking amazing drummer. And I'm telling you how amazing I am, because if I'd gone, fuck you, I'm leaving the band if you don't let me do the album, with the confidence I thought I had, I wouldn't have learned quite so much. I think, and that was a tough lesson as well, because it wasn't anything I'd done wrong. I joined the band, we were doing some gigs, and they said, oh, by the way, Jeff's going to do the album. And it's like, well, why not me? You know I can play and all that. In fact, I did go and do some recording with I went to do some recording in Nashville with them, and they didn't use me. They wiped me for Richie Havens, the Little Feat drummer. And I was like, well, what was wrong with my playing? I've still got the tape of it, and it's like, it's fine. And then when the album came out, they'd wiped Richie Havens and put Eddie Bears on. So it was like, oh, okay. You had to come to terms with, there might have been some politics there. They wanted a named drummer. and then they wanted a different name drummer. So I mean, I got pushed. You know, it's a good lesson to learn, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And you hit on a really pertinent point that, a lot of musicians, especially professionals, face, and it's that when you get criticism. So we've all had that, some kind of feedback, and, it can be destructive or constructive, but what's your approach to, taking that on?
Well, I've got a brilliant approach. I don't really look at anything written on the internet. Because anybody who comments on the internet, I'm partly like, oh, you're commenting on stuff on the internet rather than I think that's the way. I don't really look at that. I don't know whether I find it valid. If somebody, I remember the first thing on the internet was I played on the Wakeman album. That's why I worked with Ozzy, and because they had loads of singers on that album. And somebody wrote in a review in Germany, Simon Hanson, who the fuck's that? Where was Simon Phillips that day? And I remember reading that going, probably couldn't afford him.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? Anybody comments on anything, it's like my favourite thing on this. I love a film called Local Hero.
Oh, amazing! Great one.
Well, being Scottish and all that, but Bill Forsyth and Dave Putnam. And I watched it the other day because it's on Channel 4, and then I went onto IMDb, which I love, and I looked at the trivia and all that. And then underneath it came like mistakes, and there's a bit in it where he goes, "They run over a rabbit." He says, "Should we not hit it with something hard?" And the American guy said, "We've just hit it with a 1.5-ton automobile." And somebody on IMDb said, "I think you'll find the Cortina Mark IV is a 2-ton automobile," or something like that. and I was thinking, this is one of the greatest films in the entire world. Somebody on the internet has sat down and worked out that they got the weight of the car wrong. That was like a tiny subplot. And I thought, that's what internet criticism basically is like to me now. So I look at it like that. If I was to read something, I would just go, well, that's that. No, it's not. It's a 1.5. Cortina Mark IV gear is a 1.5. And I suppose that's how it is. But, if somebody who I had utter respect for, like Jag Schooner or, Glenn in my band, says something to me, or Matthew Seligman, somebody says, look, I think you should do it like this. It's then time to look at drop trigger. It's that 10. Absolutely look at yourself and go, right, I will, So I will validate the criticism, and I'll do it if I respect the person.
Right, and if you don't, you'll just tell them where to go.
Yeah, I did. We at a hybrid gig recently, a guy, he probably won't listen to this. So they do a meet and greet afterwards, and we were doing this, and I was standing there with the band, and he came up and he said, right, bar 28, I think we were flabbing with the...
Okay. Get the notepad out.
Yeah, and I'd had a couple of drinks by this time, and I just kept saying to him, how's your album doing, mate? That was my... that was my only response, and I found it really funny because he goes, bar 29, do you not think you should have done a film like this? And he said, I think Andy Gangadin would have done that differently. And I kept saying, how's your album doing, mate? Ours is at number 1, just want to say.
Good one.
But ironically, afterwards, I went, oh, better next gig. I thought, well, I better be fucking bit tighter. Yeah. How do you do it? Do people just end up loving like being at a gig and getting the vibe? And sometimes it's good to have a bit of criticism, isn't it?
Yeah, and just being able to take that on because I get reflecting on this recently and working with someone, Hugh Cornwell or whoever it might be, and in the process of the practice session or even the gig, there can be direction given, and it's that willingness to, take that on and
oh my
and
God!
try it,
no, in a professional setting, no, that whoever's MD, that is it. I would never. If somebody's at the reins and has responsibility for the show, and they say to me, "Can you play at the same tempo but hold it back?" I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to go, well, I was
Absolutely.
doing it. No, God, no. No,
Yeah.
you go, right, okay, I'll have to look at that. And I mean, tempo is a really interesting thing
Yeah.
because a lot of the time I run a track with Squeeze. We're running bits and bobs, little sounds that. So I will have a tempo. And I remember when we did the pyramid stage at Glastonbury, filled with all the relevant nerves of all that. I started a song. I thought I'd started the wrong program because the tempo I had in my head for the song did not match what I was hearing because my perception within that moment was so distorted. And then I checked 3 times. Dog, don't do that. I checked 3 times, trying to get out there. Trying to get in there. My perception for the track was probably 10 BPM the other side of what was happening. And I thought I triggered the wrong song. And I looked down and I hadn't, and I went with it, and we started playing it, and it was the one. So I mean, how you perceive time can depend on so many things. So you know,
Absolutely.
I do. So I mean, definitely live, and I know like vocalists have trouble. They'll hear pitch a different thing at times, you know. And I don't. Glenn, who sings the Squeeze, gets it right every time. But when I hear the bass note, I hear it's in a different key. And it's just how you perceive it. And he doesn't. He always knows where it is.
Yeah.
It's that. Do you get? I go gig
Yeah.
blind. You know, sometimes.
It's interesting that perception of time thing. It's like doing a set that you've played so much. It's like I was reflecting this a few tours ago I did with Hugh Cornwell in the UK. It's like we've got this. The first set is the same every night, and the second one would be different. And we all knew the material really, really well. And it's like we could play for an hour, and that first hour goes by in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's like, whoa, what's happening here? And it's that. Yeah, there can be that, you know, interesting perception live about pitching things. And what I've found is just to be able to trust myself that if I can sit and play, and this is the way that it makes sense for me, is if I can sit and play before the rehearsal or the gig, just me with a click track and play through everything and hear all the bits in my head and pitch it right, then that just instills that sense of trust that I don't then think about, oh, what's the pitch? I just do it.
You'll know where it is. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's good to do that. I mean, that's very dedicated. I think I'm much more of a bit of quiet time. So an hour before a show, I get changed. Try and sit on. I try and sit on my own and not get to do my pacing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't do that before every show, but just that in practice.
I was going to say that's really fucking dedicated. Mate. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll definitely be quiet and think about. I'll have a look. I'll get a set list and have a look and just go through it.
Yeah.
Not in real time. I'll go through the songs. And, exactly as you're saying, but not. Yeah, I think also that a week into a tour, it should be there, shouldn't it?
100%.
Should have locked in what you're doing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Very much so.
Very cool.
I mean, if I don't do this at the moment, but if I ever used to sit in on sessions for bands and there wasn't many rehearsals, I wouldn't like that. I really like to rehearse a lot. Some people don't or can't afford to, and it's just that's the time to get. I would get nervous and really I can't remember. I can't remember all the things I'm supposed to remember. You know, it's quite hard.
How do you address that? The classic question: do you get nervous before you play, or not much, or is that pretty much a thing of the past?
I think it is about what you know is coming up. I think there's some situation. I mean, I felt the nerves at Glastonbury when we did it, and I didn't. But it wasn't just that gig. It was like that moment, you know, because I don't think Squeeze had ever done the pyramid stage before me.